And we are back, and I just wanted to mention really quick that if you aren't following us on Twitter, you should be. We are at the Power Play 14. And coming back, I wanted to get a little bit into the injury aspect of the NHL and towards the end of the regular season. I feel like last year was more a lot of concussions. This year, to me, it seems like a lot of heart problems. And obviously, I want to get into Rich Peverley and what happened with the Dallas Stars with his collapse. I actually just found out today, obviously I wasn't reading into it too well, I saw it on Twitter that originally that the Stars had tweeted, "We don't know what's going on, we'll be back in a minute." And we were here, I think it was last Monday, we were recording our show, and I was like, oh, that's strange. So I looked further into it after I'd gotten home and found out that Peverley had collapsed. Doctors had said at one point, and this was what I didn't know, that at one point he had no pulse and was revived in the tunnel using CPR and an AED. He underwent successful surgery in Cleveland, and he's in a normal rhythm. He was treated for what I believe was an abnormal heart rhythm on Tuesday, and he will be going home to Dallas soon. He collapsed on the 10th during a game against the Blue Jackets and will obviously miss the remainder of the season.
That's a huge injury.
It's a scary thing.
That is huge. I mean, to have to be resuscitated pretty much, I don't know. Did they say whether it was a condition that he has had for a while, or if this just kind of came out of nowhere? I mean,
yeah, I remember them saying over the summer, I'm pretty sure he had a procedure before the season even started and had missed a couple games throughout the beginning part of the year because of chest pains and stuff like that. So they knew what it was. I just don't think they knew the magnitude, or it was still affecting him the way that it obviously did.
Yeah, you can kind of relate that a little bit to Letang. You know, he had a heart condition, and, you know, whoever thought he would have had a stroke at 26. But, I mean, thank God he was okay, and he's back to skating. But with Peverley, this was huge.
He had originally planned to have this surgery during the off-season to correct that abnormality. It must have been the abnormal heartbeat is what caused this issue, and for him to collapse and basically die for a couple seconds. If you're using a defibrillator in your heart, you have no pulse, like he was brought back to life. It's terrifying.
So do you think, you know, taking this case and, you know, looking at other cases like Letang, do you think the league is going to crack down a little bit more on the physical and health testing of the players prior to the start of the season, just kind of digging a little bit deeper and making sure that they are in, I guess, you know, top prime condition, even if they have a condition like this and they say it's under control?
I'm not entirely sure what the league's procedures on heart testing would be. I don't know how transparent. I'm assuming the players have to be pretty transparent about pre-existing conditions. Like Letang, I don't believe he knew he had the hole in his heart. Peverley knew he had this abnormal heart rhythm. He had planned to have surgery later on. I would imagine possibly the league needs to start encouraging these players, if it's a big issue, like with your heart, that they need to take the time off. I mean, you're an athlete, it's your job, but if something major like this happens, you need to have the surgery immediately, especially if it's your heart, if it's your brain, maybe with a concussion, one too many concussions. Something needs to be done. And what I was actually talking about the other day with some people in regards to Chris Letang and his stroke and his heart issue. Guys around the locker room were asking him if he could take contact. You know, he started to skate again. What happens if he gets bumped and you're the guy on the team in practice that bumps him and something happens?
I mean, I think that's one of those things where it could be one of his teammates that hits him and something happens, or it could be another player, I mean, from another team. I mean, these guys, they're all humans, they're all people, and they know that these are serious conditions, you know, whether it's a game or not. So at that point, I think whoever hits him, if that would ever happen, I'm not saying it's going to, and, I hope to God it doesn't, but, if that would ever happen, I think whoever hits him, whether it's a teammate or an opposing player, is going to feel some kind of guilt, especially because this was such a highly publicized story, not just in Pittsburgh, but around the league. And I think that maybe that because his story came out first and that happened first to him, maybe they'll be able to help Peverley in a way that they probably wouldn't have done if there wasn't that precedent of Letang having known heart problems. So you could almost look at it as a blessing in disguise, that maybe the league is going to start paying more attention to this. I know I kind of got away from your question there, but yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a Penguins jersey, if you're wearing, a Ducks jersey, a Blackhawks jersey, whatever. If they would ever hit a player with a heart condition and something would happen because of that, I'm sure they're going to feel bad no matter what.
It was truly amazing the amount of support that the other teams were showing to the Stars. I mean, there was a Penguin game going on at the same time during this issue, and I know I personally on social media was like, hey guys, Penguins won, but also this larger thing happened. Like, did anyone hear about this? Like, can you see, do you see, this issue that's obviously becoming more and more prominent around the league, heart issues? It's not something that, it's not like a concussion, is caused by playing, but the support that was going into the Stars organization was pretty amazing. If you looked at their Twitter timeline, it was basically every team in the NHL was showing their support for the team and for Peverley. And it's a scary thing. It really is.
Yeah, and I'll relate that back to what I said. They're all people. They're all humans. They all have family and friends that have possibly had heart conditions like this, so when it comes down to it, the NHL, I guess you could almost look at it as one big family. All the teams are going to support each other when it comes down to really serious stuff like that. But it is great to see all the teams reaching out and being so helpful and so considerate of a condition like that.
On a not so large of a scale note, the only other large injury that I have to report around the league was Patrick Kane, originally thought to be missing 2 weeks, was put on injured reserve. But Blackhawks general manager Scott Bowman states on the team's website that Patty Kane will be ready to go for the playoffs. Do you think his injury, I'm not sure actually was it a lower body injury?
This is actually the first time I had heard about this.
He was originally supposed to be out for 2 weeks. And, places like the Chicago Tribune are saying that he's going to, the Blackhawks are going to be fine. A leg injury. Out with a lower body leg injury. Originally thought to be 2 weeks. Now, I guess pretty unsure, but they're pretty confident that he's going to be back for the playoffs. But the Blackhawks obviously don't need Kane right now. I truly believe that they're going to be fine. They're going to obviously be in the playoffs, but what if he's not ready to go?
I still think they're going to be fine. The Blackhawks are one of the strongest teams, not just in the Western Conference, but in the league right now. And yeah, Patrick Kane is a huge asset to the team, but they do have quite a strong core of players, so they'll do fine without him. I know they would love to have him back and ready for the playoffs, and I think obviously because they're not going to say specifically what it was, just that it was a lower body leg injury. The fact that they said, 2 weeks, and then, just kidding, he'll be back in time for the playoffs, that almost just kind of sounds like they're just taking precautions and making sure that he is ready to go when the playoffs start. Not, they don't want to bring him back too soon so that they have him for a couple games and then start the playoffs and then have something go wrong. So for me, the team's going to do fine without him. They'll still make the playoffs, and I think Patrick Kane will be even more so ready to go if they keep him out until the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know about if Kane really... obviously, don't get me wrong, Kane's a great player. He really helps that team out a lot, but it's not a devastating injury for them. They already have a pretty good record going into the home stretch. It's not like they're fighting for their lives to get in, and they need him every single game. They still have some unbelievable lines. I believe Hosa's back from injury, and also they still have Brandon Saad, who's still out with injury, but he's supposed to come back pretty soon too. And he's also almost leading the league with a plus 29 rating, and he's 6th on the team with 44 points. So hopefully if they can get Brandon Saad back before Kane comes back, Saad's played on all 3 lines throughout the year, so he can probably fill that spot until Kane comes back.
I would personally be more worried if they didn't have Brandon Saad back before Patrick Kane for the start of the playoffs, just because he is so versatile that he can play on all of those lines. And not just being able to move from the top line to the 4th line, but it's the dynamic of the players on the line too. So he's a very talented player, and I think they would really miss him, not in a huge way, but they would definitely feel his absence.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. If you look at it, I'm not going to say that Kane and Taves and Crosby and Malkin and people like that are lazy, but when you're best in the world, you don't necessarily have to grind in the corners, and Brandon will get in there and do anything you want him to. I mean, he's just a hard-working kid. They don't call him man-child for nothing.
Well, we are going to go ahead and take our second break, and when we come back, we are going to get into what would happen if the NHL playoffs started today. I know they're coming up pretty soon, less than a month, so get excited. But we have the matchups for if they started today, and we are going to talk about the upcoming games for this weekend. So stay tuned. If you're not following us, go on Twitter right now and follow us at ThePowerPlay14. We are Daisy Jake is with us today, not Chris. I don't know if we mentioned that, so it's nice to have Jake on the air with us, and Katie, and we will be right back.